Hello. Okay, now start. So today I will discuss about or read about the Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 Karma Yoga. The yoga is action. The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to elevate one beyond the bodily concept of life to the plane of consciousness or understanding the nature of the self. Sri Krishna has already established this in the second chapter, but it appears that Arjun finds some contradiction in what Krishna has said. Arjuna asks Krishna to further explain wisdom and action so that he may follow the proper path. This confusion is common amongst novices. Should one be a philosopher who is indifferent to the affairs of the material world, or should one engage in one's prescribed duties? আরে শেয়ার হচ্ছে না বলবা তো না করেছি না বুঝতে না বুঝতে ঠিক আছে What is ultimately to be understood by Krishna's instruction is that both wisdom and proper engagement are independent. One is not complete without the other. Engagement, sometimes seen as spiritual practices without philosophy, is merely sentimental, and philosophy without practice is mental speculation. Religious practices without a solid philosophical basis often lead to fantasism that results in destruction and death. Our modern world is all too aware of this. The independent relationship between philosophy and spiritual practice is inseparable for one who wants to achieve the perfection of human life. Action should be performed with proper knowledge, only then does one achieve the proper result and is considered a true yogi. The Vedic injunctions enjoin that all activities should be performed as an offering to Vishnu or Krishna. Y- Yajino By Vishnu, no embodied being can give up action even for a moment, because in the material world everyone is forced to act under the influence of the modes of nature. It is also said that the pure nature of the Atma is to be engaged in the spiritual activities of serving the Supreme Being, Krishna. Therefore, all activities are to be connected to and for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. This is known as the constitutional position of the Atma. It is clear from the above verses that action is better than inaction, and it is said, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. If the senses are idle and one tries to empty the mind, then what usually transpires is that the mind becomes engaged in unproductive thoughts, and eventually the sense objects carry the mind and senses away. The influence of the moods of material nature over the Atma is called Maya or illusion. This Maya is the external energy of the absolute truth. When the Atma is separated or disconnected from the absolute truth by improper philosophical understanding or proper activities, The result is bewilderment, confusion, and samasra. In verse 10, Brahma is mentioned as the creator. According to the Vedas, Brahma is the first living being in this universe and is manifest directly by Vishnu. Brahma's function is as the secondary creator of the planetary system. In the modern times, some aesthetic thinkers such as Professor Richard Dawkins and evolutionary biologist from Oxford University have concerned that aliens from another planet may have possibly seeded life on Earth. Far-fetched as this may sound to some of us, the idea does come very close to the truth. The ancient texts of India state that Brahma resides in the higher realm in the universe known as Satyalok. Some of the offering of Brahma, known as the Prajapatis, are then sent forth to seed life throughout the cosmos. But rather than look at Brahma as an alien, the Vedic texts describe him as the father of all living beings in the material world. Since Western civilization first came into contact with the pantheon of Vedic demigods, there has been always been the speculation that the Vedic people, often referred to as Hindus, were pagans, pagans meaning the worshipping of many gods and not one supreme god. Thus, Western observers conclude that monotheism, the worship of reverence of one supreme god, originated with the Abrahamic religion of the West. This, however, is not a fact. The Vedic pantheon does indeed include many lesser demigods, but the Vedic texts are quite clear that there is only one supreme being or supreme consciousness that is above all. This is always referred to as Brahma, Parambrahma, and Bhagavan, Vishnu or Krishna. For example, the Rig Veda 1.22.20 states as follows. The divine feet of Vishnu are above all like the sun above our heads. His holy feet are like the vigilant eye of a grand guardian over our heads like the sun. Historically speaking, it is enormous to assume that monotheism was developed by Abrahamic civilization independent of any outside influence. In fact, the Abrahamic regions borrowed the idea of monotheism from the Persians after King Cyrus subjugated Babylon and Judaic uh, Syria 500 BCE. Prior to the arrival of the Persian and continuing into the second and third centuries, Judaism and Christianity were known to have belief systems based on one or more gods. Thus, monotheism only gradually developed among the Abrahamic region. Since the monotheistic concept found in the Vedas is such older than the Abrahamic regions, it is only logical to conclude that the latter borrowed their thinking from the former. During the inter The Persians, under the influence of Zoroaster, took the monotheistic philosophy from India and they transmitted it to the Middle Eastern civilization. Indeed, monotheism has always been the central theme of Indian Vedic literature. However, falling to look deeply into the philosophy of the Vedas or possibly being culturally intimidated by the superiority of Vedic knowledge as opposed to Western philosophies and religions. Eurocentric academics and fundamental religionists have marginalized the ancient Vedic civilization of India. The German scholar Max Muller propagated further misinformation on this subject in the 19th century with the invention of the Aryan invasions theory. Starting the Vedic civilization did not originate in India, yet all this is quite far from the truth. According to Muller, the Aryans were a nomadic tribe from Europe who invaded India. Yet there is no evidence that the Aryans are nomads. In fact, suggests that a nomadic tribe of barbarians wrote literature of such profound wisdom as the Vedas defines imagination. Furthermore, within the Vedas there is no mention of whatsoever of an original homeland, and archaeologically there is a complete lack of evidence to prove an invasion ever occurred. It can only be concluded that the Aryan people and Vedic knowledge were always indigenous to India. The Vedic knowledge is the Vishnu or Krishna is supreme, and the lesser god and goddess such as Brahma, Shiva, Ganesha, Kartikeya, Kali, and Saraswati, etc., are actually servants of supreme being and are empowered with the duties of managing the universal affairs of material nature. In the above verse, Sri Krishna recommends that offerings should be made to the demigods, and thus the demigods will be pleased to bestow unto humanity all the necessities of life. This is, in short, a universal law of taxation. In other words, we must give the demigods their dues. It is also intrinsic to the nature of the Atma to perform service and sacrifice. Constit- Constitutionally, the Atma being part of the organic whole, the absolute truth is duty bound to sever the whole both in the life and in eternity. When the sacrifice or offerings are made to Vishnu, such as fruits, vegetables, etc., then one's sins become purified by eating the remains of such offerings. But if one takes the things of this world without first acknowledging to whom they actually belong, then one simply incurs a karmic reaction. This later in Bhagavad Gita that these food offerings should comprise of vegetables, fruit, milk products, flowers, etc. Non-vegetarian food items cannot be offered to Vishnu or Krishna. Consequently, the servants of Vishnu or Krishna are vegetarian. Krishna will also explain that those who serve the absolute truth are not duty bound to serve the demigods, nor are they bound by any other social consideration. The Vedic system of political and spiritual leadership is that one should lead by example. Unfortunately, in today's world, good leaders of any kind are hard to come by. Not only are we disappointed to learn that those we have elected to public office are often pilfering the wealth of the country for their own benefit, but we are even more shocked to learn that many of our so called spiritual leaders cannot even maintain the most basic principle of morality, engage in abandonment depraved practices. Sri Krishna states in the above verses that what a great man does, the common man will follow. This is most evident when we observe how movie stars, rock stars, and sport personalities influence the majority of people today. That we tend to be influenced by others is a human characteristic, therefore the role models are essential. But when human society needs a role model that are knowledgeable, cultured, morally principled, and spiritually advanced, Sri Krishna states in the above verses that he has no duty to perform, that he lacks nothing nor has he anything to gain. In the other words, Krishna is already perfect and complete. Om Purnam. Yet Krishna acts, he is not idle. He acts for the benefit of humanity by establishing spiritual practices in every age. Dharman tu saksha bhagavat pranatam. When an avatara of the Absolute Truth makes his appearance in the material world, he does so to establish eternal principle of dharma. Vishnu appeared at the end of Dvapara Yuga 5237 years ago and spoke the Bhagavad Gita. However, this is not Krishna's most recent appearance. Krishna appeared again after the beginning of Kali Yuga 5 to 5 years ago. The Kali Yuga of Krishna is known as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In his avatara as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna taught the process of Sanskrit Sankirtana, the congregational chanting of the Mahamantra to accompany the study of Bhagavad Gita. As regards the Mahamantra, the Sang, the Kali Sanstarna Upanishad state as follows: the 16 words of this Mahamantra are specifically meant for counteraction the uh, the contamination of Kali Yuga. There is no other way but to chant this mantra of Krishna after searching throughout the Vedic literature and will not find a process for this age that is more subtle. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The transcendental origins of the Mahamantra is further described as follows. The name of Sri Krishna is transcendental touchstone, full of all transcendental mellows, complete, pure, and eternally liberating. The name of Krishna is non-different than Krishna. The study of Bhagavad Gita and the practice of Sankirtana have now spread all over the world. It is not longer sometimes that is only available in India. There will be more discussion on this particular topic in chapter 4 verse 8. The proper mode of action and the pro, proprietor of the results of action is only understood when one is free from the identification of the self as the body, as being a byproduct of the body, or that one is the doer of activities. We walk, we talk, we digest food, we construct buildings and even empires. But all these activities are made possible for us by a combination of material nature and the Praman pra, Paramatma, the supreme consciousness that pervades the entire universe. How all this transpires is inconceivable to those under the bodily bodily concept of life. Thus, the idea that I am this body arising from the false ego must be abandoned. Who are we? What do we come from? Why are we here? Is there life after death? The answer to all these questions being to fall into place when one gives up the concept of body as the self. Many great thinkers from Western civilization have struggled with the ultimate questions of life and death, but failed to find the answers or the solution of the problem, but in part was due to the fact that they contemplated life under the false premise that the body is the self realization and realization of the absolute truth began with the abandonment of the bodily concept of life. The faults of material lives are many. Herein, Sri Krishna has mentioned certain faults that a serious student of the Bhagavad Gita should be prem- preeminently aware of: ignorance, foolishness, selfish motivation, a false sense of proprietorship, as well as attraction and aversion to the sense objects are mentioned by Krishna. But more dangerous than any other fault is envy. Envy, it seems, it purely evil, as Krishna says that those who don't follow the teaching of Bhagavad Gita out of enviousness are bereft bereft of all knowledge and intelligence. Another danger is the tendency of neglecting one's own duty and trying to perform the duty of another. In the other world, Krishna says Arjuna to tend to his own business. Arjuna is Kshatriya, and his duty, as always discussed, is to protect and defend the kingdom. Arjuna, however, is showing learning towards re- renunciation, becoming a monk, a sannyasi. Arjuna wants to abandon his duty and perform that of another, but Krishna warns him that this is not a good idea. The fact, Krishna says, it is even dangerous. Krishna explained that it is better to perform. Krishna explained that it is better to perform one's own duty imperfectly than performs another duty perfectly. In particular, Krishna is encourages Arjuna to follow the course of conduct set down of Kshatriya, of which abandoning the battlefield for a warrior is not an option. Herein it is stated that the mind is superior to the sense and intelligence is superior to the mind, but above the intelligence is the consciousness or Atma. The material body is comprised of the mind, senses, and intelligence, and they are therefore considered as material elements. In chapter 7, verse 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna list the eight materials element as earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Then in the next verse, Krishna describes a superior energy known as Jiva Bhuta. The owners of individual consciousness, Krishna says that this Jivabhuta, also known as Atma, is categorically different than the material element. It is fully spiritual. But when just the all devouring enemy of self realization covers the mind, senses, and intelligence of the superior Jivabhuta, then the knowledge and relationship of the Jivbhuta are destroyed. Therefore, Krishna says that first the yogi must conquer lust. If one does not pursue the cravings of lust and instead takes control of one's lower self with one's higher self, lust will eventually be vanquished. However, if one tries to satisfy his burning lust, then it is like pouring fuel onto a fire. Om Shanti. Thus ends the chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga from the conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna in the Upanishad known as Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutra of divine knowledge from the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, the literature revealed by Vesh in 100,000 years. So tomorrow I don't know if I will able to read it or not because I will not be there. And the next day, I think on Saturday, I will read the Bhagavad Gita chapter called Janana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. So that's it for today. So let's see what is happening. Hmm, Okay, well, there is only two. And now I will end the session because tomorrow I have to goodbye. Good night. Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining. Bye.